which is CSR, not some other companies at Accenture.
Hi, I'm Kalpana, and I too am from Accenture, and I work with Shritika.
Hi everyone, I'm Gayatri Chauhan from Wipro Technologies. I'm anchoring the sustainability initiatives for Wipro currently.
Hi, I'm Ashwin Subramanian from ITC Infotech. I'm part of Center for Sustainability, which provides sustainability solutions around CSR and other kind of initiatives.
Hi, I'm Kumar Sumi, working for First American India Private Limited. I'm in finance team and part of CSR activities.
Hi, I'm Soumya. I'm from First American India again. I work for HR team, take care of diversity and inclusion and also the CSR initiative.
Hi, I'm Surya Mohan. I'm from HP. I work in the legal department.
You work in the?
I work in the legal department.
Legal.
Hi, my name is Abha Saxena. I'm with NESCOM Foundation and I'm based in Bangalore.
Hi, I'm Hebra Moses, heading Mindtree Foundation.
I thought you were going to talk a bit
more.
No. Okay, hi, my name is Gauri and I belong to NASCOM Foundation based out of Mumbai, spearheading the entire Business Responsibility Forum and the CSR draft rule for which we are here today. Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Gitanjali and I'm part of CSR and Sustainability team of ISE.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanjay Purandare. I head the legal and company secretary of ANZ Operations and Technology, Bangalore.
Great. Hi, this is Richa. I'm from NextGen, and yes, that's about it.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. I'm Abhishek from NextGen, and I'm grateful to Dr. Chatterjee for coming here and to NASCOM and Mindtree for making this possible, and hope to receive your feedback in the truest way possible.
Yeah.
I think we all know Dr. Chatterjee.
Yes. Hi, I'm Prerna from the Business Associates at NextGen.
Hi, I'm Tushar. I'm Senior Business Associate at NextGen.
Hey, I'm Manoj. I'm part of the Cloud Computing Group at Mindtree. We work very closely with NextGen in building solution.
Hi, I'm Abhinav Prakash. I'm from NextGen. I'm a business analyst here, and we're working with the Mindtree for development for the CSR fund management.
Hi, I'm Kaushik. I work in the same team as Abhinav. I'm a senior business analyst.
Hi everyone, I'm Justin, part of National Foundation, handling the corporate volunteering program for national member companies. It's called My Curriculum.
And the official photographer today.
I'm volunteering.
Hi, I'm Manik. I'm heading Mindtree Foundation's assistive technology product installations.
Just for information's sake, how many IT companies are registered in India? Any idea about the IT sector?
There are 1,500 that are part of NASCOM IT BPM sector, NASCOM member companies.
But do they represent the totality?
No, but in terms of turnover, they represent about 80 to 90%. Then there's in total about 7,000 companies.
At a pinch, how many would qualify for the CSR thing?
We should know that number, but a large...
You can do a little bit of homework on that and let me know.
A large number of them will.
But I need to know how large, and what their profit before taxes are, and how much of CSR money would come from the IT sector.
It's a huge amount.
What special expertise would the IT sector bring into CSR? Because sectorally, the IT sector is big in India, one of our premier verticals. So what is it, the IT sector, what is its overall presence in the CSR space? Let's say we're looking at about 15,000 crores in the CSR space, all India. Out of 15,000 crores, what is the contribution of IT? There are 8,000 or so Indian companies who will be attracted by the CSR provisions. How many of those 8,000 are IT? Is it 10%, 12%, 20%? That analysis is very important for us. And maybe I could ask NextGen to help me with that. And as I have no doubt that the IT sector would be a fair chunk of the totality of CSR, we could also try to work with the IT sector to find what particular strengths could they bring into the CSR space. How could they help NGOs? How could they help other companies? How could they help other corporates to actually ensure that we could get the best value for the money that we spend in CSR? We already know that to a large extent, for government, the amount of money, frankly, is not very important. Because the totality of what you would give is 1/5 of one department of the government of India. So actually the amount is, frankly, for government of India, not even a blip on a screen. But the expectation is that this amount can be leveraged well. It can act as seed money for attracting other investments. This money can actually deliver almost 4 or 5 times what government money can deliver, because of the private sector's capacity to monitor closely, to bring in marketing and IT intelligence, to get the best bang for the buck, and because of the internal efficiencies that corporations have. What government would do for 5 times more is perhaps what corporates can achieve with what they have. So the expectation from government is not the quantum of money, which may be small. For a national budget, it is very small. But what we can get out of that amount is actually a lot. And because it will be every year, the sustainability of projects on the ground will therefore be ensured. What we've seen is that there are too many one-off activities. An eye camp here, a little road project there, a small little school which doesn't function anymore. The wilds and the rural areas of India are splattered with the tombs of dead CSR projects. People just go start up something and you know what, the blighter up there didn't sanction me the budget this year, so God bless you, I'm off. So much of our effort doesn't become sustainable because we don't know that there is a yearly and binding commitment, and that each activity we do is in the form of a project. It's not a one-time, one-shot thing. I just did an eye camp and that was the end of my commitment to that village. Or I put in a bore well and I did my deed. Of course, I hung a very fancy signage saying done by Accenture or whatever. Then you run along.
No. I object.
Sorry for putting that. What I'm saying is that it's not only the private sector which does that. It's also littered with public sector doing the same thing. It's just that human beings who tend to do this kind of activity don't necessarily have a long-term commitment. Some do. And where there is that long-term commitment, the results are there to see. But mostly it doesn't happen. And part of the objective of the Act is to bring in a binding commitment from the corporate sector, which includes the public sector, by the way, to ensure that what they want to do is projectivized. So that we know that there is a start date, there is an end date, that there is an allocation of funds over the 3 years or 5 years or 6 months, whatever is the duration of the project. And that it will be monitored. If the project is not monitored efficiently, it will also die, or it will slip out of time and space. And finally, the commitment to see that after all the monitoring and all the money that we gave to it, it actually happened on the ground. And some form of a responsibility structure to say that if something did not happen or got late, who is responsible by name in the public domain. out for the world to see. That's what the kind of accountability that this piece of legislation will bring, is that kind of accountability and transparency. So this is a landmark piece of legislation, principally also from this point of view.
So one of the pieces that we wanted to start off with was actually an answer to your question about what is it that the IT BPM sector brings to the corporate social responsibility space. And I think we will find when we actually do the quantification that it is a fairly significant percentage of the fund and the number of companies. But I think more importantly, we believe that this sector has been doing impactful work for a long time. As opposed to a lot of the conversation that we were having over lunch. So just to sort of prioritize, in our view as NASCOM Foundation, we've been working with these 1,500 companies in terms of understanding the number of CSR initiatives. I think you heard one of the initiatives that Mindtree is doing is developing accessibility tools, for example. So one area I would define as an expertise within the IT BPM sector is these emerging social businesses that are using technology to do good. Whether we're talking about a rural BPO or we're talking about accessibility tools or we're talking, several other technologies that many in the room would have developed. And a lot of the R&D for that, while not reported in financial reports as maybe CSR, they are for the greater good. And it is one area that we think is an expertise of this industry. The second are the word that, or the phrase that Justin used, my kartavya. Volunteering, and not just volunteering simply as a feel-good employee engagement tool, while it is often that, but more on the side of strategic volunteering, using those tech skills, using those communication skills, those finance skills, those legal skills to improve the way that nonprofits operate has been another huge area that the IT BPM sector has done a lot of work. And I think the third big area in terms of CSR has been pro bono products and I'll say pro bono services. So going beyond volunteering, but actually offering pro bono services. So Accenture Development Partnerships is an example. Not quite pro bono, but it's a discounted
but
service.
our pro bono program is...
And you have a pro bono program.
Is exactly the same.
So products and services that are being donated to nonprofits because it's seen that these services and this technology will not just be good for that NGO, but it will actually make them more efficient, make them reach larger scale, etc., and utilize the expertise and the capabilities of the sector. And then I think, just coming to mind when you're saying the things that you're saying, I think project management is really the other big expertise within our sector.
We'll come to that in the rules itself. Very important.
Yeah. So I think these are sort of the four areas that we think. And to be honest, Dr. Chatterjee, I think those are actually three areas where we see some gaps in terms of the way the rules are codified at the moment. We think that this legislation, it is path-breaking. We're all looking forward to making the most of this legislation and really scaling the impact that this industry has already had. NASCOM Foundation was born out of the guise that this industry is already doing so many wonderful things. So we're looking forward to understanding the vision behind this and seeing where there will be modifications so that we can fit in the expertise of this industry and kind of, go forward from there.
Very nice. Let's skip to the rules then and just have a quick
We
look.
just got a message from Kiki's secretary that he's going to join us by 3 o'clock.
Fair enough. You can come in whenever. Just go to the rules. I think most of you have seen the act many times. This is where the rules actually start. So we'll take out the homilies, the guiding principle. Let's go to the actual rules. Now this is the part that we were talking about, projects or programs. Why does this say undertaken in pursuance of the normal course of business of a company, excluding activities? Any idea?
You think, why is it so laid out?
What does it say? That companies' activities may generally be conducted as projects or programs, excluding activities undertaken in pursuance of the normal course of business.
That is their prime objective as per the memorandum and articles for which they have been set up. The company has been set up. For example, it could be a CSR activity which is the main object of a company. So the amount spent on that activity may qualify, may not qualify for CSR as per the Companies Act. Is that the idea?
It says will not qualify.
Will not qualify.
Grade.
Yeah.
So why? Tell me.
I have one point. I just thought maybe it could be the reason. I've seen some of the organizations which would be actually qualifying their main business activity as something which is actually contributing to sustainability or CSR. And this point is actually to draw a line between those activities and something which is new in the sense.
Very, absolutely correct. There are many companies which are constituted for what you might call public good.
Right.
And many companies would love to call themselves public good companies. I don't think there's any company which actually says we are not here for the public good. But this is a thing which we face in the public sector a lot. Because every public sector company would say, we were constituted for public good. So whether it's NTPC or SAIL or Coal India or whichever company, they would always say we are a public sector company, we're in it for the public good. So why should we do CSR? We do it anyway. The purpose of this rule is to make sure that whether you think that you are doing public good or not, it won't cut any ice in the legislation. You have to do CSR activity, which is not necessarily your core activity. Coal India cannot say we dig coal and that is our CSR. We dig coal, public benefits, we supply to thermal power projects, that's how power comes, that's how people live. So by digging coal, we do CSR. Now if you told Coal India that you're supposed to be digging coal anyway, guys, so are you going to do any CSR or not? So this is there to take care of that concern. The second part of Rule 1 says, shall prepare the CSR policy of the company. So any one of you who is not properly informed, anyone else other than our small little group, what's the CSR committee? Can anyone enlighten me? What is this wretched CSR committee?
It's supposed to be a subset of the board of directors, and the existing constitution specifies that it should be consisting of 3 or more directors, out of which one should be an independent director.
Right. Very good. The CSR committee of the board of the company brings CSR from the back room to the boardroom. The primary objective of the CSR committee is that it has to be manned or personed or womaned by at least 3 people who are board members first before they are anything else. If they are not members of the board, they cannot be a member of the committee. 1. 2. One of those 3 has to be an independent director. If that doesn't happen, then the board committee is not complete. What is so special about this CSR committee? Take a look at what the rule says.
CSR committee is meant to govern and monitor the...
No, read from there. Whatever, I'll never ask you a question whose answer is not given there. Just read.
basically
What is this committee to do?
draw
policy.
Policy.
Shall prepare the CSR policy of the company. Okay, let's do some GK here, general knowledge. From which day does the meter start ticking for corporate India on CSR?
April 1st, 2014. April 1st, 2014.
15, 14, 16,
14.
13, retrospective effect.
14.
Why 14?
Say that louder. We'd like it to be 15, but we know it's 14.
What are these intervening months for? Technically, the Act is already in place. Why are we waiting for 1st April 2014?
Preparation.
Correct. Government has allowed you preparatory time to finish what you need to do before the 31st of March 2014. So that begs the question that each one of us should know 1, 2, 3, 4. What is it we have to do before 1st April 2014? Okay? Anyone can tell me what we need to do?
Board need to be in place, policy need to be clearly articulated.
Let's take it one by one. Board needs to be in place. Board is already in place.
Among them, you should form a CSR committee.
CSR committee needs to be in place. Alright? The board has to approve the composition of that CSR committee. So a formal meeting of the board has to be called, in which the MD will ask his board members, which of you will be on the CSR committee, and whether by consent or by vote. 3 august personages will be members of the CSR committee.
Dr. Chatterjee, can I take a step back?
No, take a step forward.
No, I had a question on the Constitution. It does talk of having a directors committee which consists of 3 directors who will form the committee. I was visualizing the situation, and one of whom shall be an independent director. By definition, the provision of independent director is not applicable to private limited companies.
I think all of us have the same question.
Now that being the case, that is number 1. Number 2 is a private limited company can have two directors.
2 directors. Yeah,
It need not have 3 directors. So is this a mandate? Do we see this as a mandate from the government to say, even in respect of private limited companies, you are mandatorily required to have 3 directors? And also, though the provision of independent directors is not applicable, you still, for the purpose of CSR committee, you will have an independent director.
Write this down in capital letters. YES.
Okay.
Please write it down in capital letters.
It is required.
YES. That's it. I always like to give short, pithy answers, which straight away tell you yes or no. No flubbing here. You have to have 3 directors for the purpose of section 135, whether you're a single member company, a double member company or not. And one of them has to be an independent. We've taken a legal advice on this. That's why I'm so confident. Now, these 3 members of the CSR committee, if you were in a boardroom like this, and if I were the MD of this company, and I were to ask you, which of you would like to volunteer for the CSR committee? How many of you would raise your hand?
I think all of us, actually in this room.
Yeah, and that's great to hear.
Room.
But maybe after a couple of slides, we might have a different
I just want to check out the liabilities.
Much of the questioning I'm going to do is about leading questions. So before you reply, just pause a little bit. Okay? First of all, what will happen to the names of the 3 members of that CSR committee?
What will happen to the names of the people?
They have to be published.
That's
They
right.
constitute the committee.
Published?
As part of the
In a document?
website, company's website, and
Yeah, it has
as
to
part of
be
the
in the
CSR
website.
policy, it needs to be documented.
Yeah, the word is not published, but they have to be put out.
Put out.
They have to be put out in the public domain. Therefore, they will be on the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs website, in the Director's Report. In all of these three places, the individual names will have to be indicated. What could be the reason for this? What could be the reason for declaring in the public domain the name of those three august personages who constitute the CSR committee?
Accountability. Accountability.
Beautiful. You're the intelligent person, I see. All your answers are correct. This leads to an era of what we're going to call personal responsibility. And you will soon see that although strictly speaking legally it may be hard to come down there, but one can establish a case against any one of the three who default on the duties, which are incidentally specified not so much in the rules as in the Act itself. I was of course going to the rules because I had presumed that you know the Act backwards. However, in places where we need to refer to the Act, I will, okay? Now, if then you said to yourselves, well, it's still a great day, the MD asked, and I put up my hand, and I became a member of the CSR committee. And all right, so what? I'm loving public service, CSR is a great thing, even if I'm personally liable, so what? Let me do something for my country. Let me do some good CSR for my company. After all, I'm a member of the board. Why shouldn't I do something good, right? If you are still motivated by that wonderful desire on your part, here's another thing. It says, specify the sectors in which the projects and programs are to be undertaken. Why is this different from other policies? Why is the CSR policy different from other policies? Just go to 135.1, Gitanjali. Scroll up.
Just hit escape, maybe take it out of the presentation mode.
Because it's not contained, or slightly, you know, bring the magnification down so that you get the full slide.
Can you guys just read it off the screen?
No, the slide is going out of the screen, I think.
Yeah, can you read the
magnification? You're all techies, yaar. Bring it down to 70% or 60%.
It's in presentation mode, not in.
Yeah, that is all right, but it's not working. That's what I'm saying. It's adjusted from there.
Does anyone have another laptop?
We've got the expert coming.
Because the meat of this is in the bottom part, sadly. Anyway, we'll not
Gauri,
stop
do you want to
here.
read the slide? Why don't you read the bottom of the slide?
I'll tell you what it says anyway. We all know it by heart. What it says is that this policy, which the CSR committee will formulate, must contain every single activity which the company is to carry out in its CSR domain. Okay? Now, if you are a member of that CSR committee, you might ask me the question, what's so difficult about that? I can tell you from the back of my head that my company would love to do these 10 things, and those are my 10 activities. Why should that scare me from becoming a member of the CSR committee? What do they say about all of this? That's only the tip of the iceberg. Can you see section 135, the latter part of section 135(1) shall constitute a corporate responsibility committee of the board consisting of 3 or 4 directors. Of at least 1 director shall be an independent director. That we got through. Now, the board's report shall disclose the composition. Therefore, each of the 3 members, we have to disclose the names of them. All right? Next.
It's not going to the next slide. It's another laptop. There's something wrong with the laptop or the projector?
I think it's the setting, it's not the laptop, yeah. We got fancy with the setting, trying to have something different on the screen.
So, does the board appoint an independent director only for CSR, or that person is a director on the board for anything
If you don't
else?
have any issues with 1-person, 2-person company, suppose this is a board in which I'm sitting and I'm presiding, and my board has these 12 or 14 members, then any 3 of them will become members of the CSR committee. One of them will be an independent director, that's all.
I think the question is more of those private limited companies.
Yeah.
So only have 2
We
directors.
don't have any independent
Therefore, you will have 1 for CSR. Only
for CSR. So
Only
that
for
person's
CSR.
focus is only CSR.
That's it. Period.
Period. Okay.
Now see what it says. 3A. Which shall indicate the activities to be undertaken by the company. So whatever you want to do, you have to decide before 31st March 2014. Whatever you're going to do in the year 14-15, your policy has to be passed by the board, your committee has to be approved by the board, policy has to be approved by the board, and the policy must have every single activity which you wish to take up. And remember, every activity has to be a project or a program, not some iCamp here or some small construction of road here or some sort of mobile van there. No, it has to be projectivized.
So how would you define a project and a program?
We'll come to that in a minute. Okay. Now, B, recommend the amount of expenditure. So if you have listed all of those programs and projects which your company is to do, you will have to indicate against every single one of those activities what is the amount of money that you intend to spend on that project or program. So if there are 400 projects, then you have to allocate monies to all the 400 projects. Okay? Broadly speaking, the project is defined as follows. It must have a start date and an end date. It must have a specific financial allocation to it. It must be monitored, and therefore it must be broken up into milestones. And it must be evaluated either concurrently or at the end or both. Those are the broad qualifications of
This is
a
on or
project.
before 31st March.
Yes.
Can we have a broader headlines, maybe we say that we allot 30% of money on different label, 30% on sustainability, 30% on CSR, then throughout the year we can figure out requirement basis.
Very difficult to, I think it's a
You
little
can't
End of the
figure out
year,
in
we can
6
complete
months.
that amount.
Our belief is if you can't figure out in 6 months,
In
you'll
6
never
months.
figure it out. put your brains together. Remember also that you may change those activities in the course of the year. It's not as though if you write them down once, they become cast in stone. The board of the company may modify the projects and programs in the course of the year. So if you find a particular project is going nowhere, or you're not able to do it, you can substitute it with another.
So these activities are not in the public domain?
Of course.
They are.
Your policy is in the public domain.
So once you change that, then
You say I've changed it, finished. No harm. Government gives you complete leeway. You are all human beings. You cannot foresee everything in life.
So disclosure, transparency needs to be
Totally,
maintained.
absolutely. And they were not saying to give any reason. You can change a project or its dimensions, or its allocation, or its duration, or sack the project altogether, put another one. Nobody's going to ask you why, because you don't need to furnish any explanation. That explanation, your board is enough to decide. The government is not going to come after you for any of these things. You have complete flexibility on what you want to do.
Can any activities be added later?
Of course, added, subtracted, whatever. So long as you spend.
Yeah.
We will come to that controversial 2% clause in a minute.
Dr. Then we, for the sake of law, we'll just put something and we keep on changing.
Sure.
So that's what will happen.
Any change has to be done at a board meeting.
Naturally. So
you
please
record
do
it.
exactly what the gentleman said. Just put whatever you like. Every board meeting change it.
Yeah.
And your CSR committee, my friend, will hang you from the roof.
Yeah.
Because their names are out there in the public domain. Mr. Rajesh Bhargav changed his mind 14 times in the same year. What kind of an idiot was he sitting on the board of, excuse me, not the next year this time.
Thank you.
Some other company. Because of that, there will be a great deal of application of mind before you actually write an activity.
So it was just a practical, and I'm throwing this out. Other CSR practitioners may just find this sort of resonating with them. I think practically speaking, at least a few of us who have our internal governance mechanisms which are fairly strong need to do exactly this. I don't think my team would come up with a plan in terms of, especially where we're putting out money. Our funding is fairly sacrosanct, tied up. Our year begins in September. By now, I've signed off on the plan. I think where it comes in, and this is peculiar to what we do in terms of in-kind services, and that's something that we will...
Pro bono and all
the
we
pro
were talking.
bono.
We'll come to that later.
Yeah. So I think that's the piece where we're not able to tie ourselves up at the beginning of the year because
That part
it's...
is fine.
Yeah.
Remember, of course, that every activity that you put here has to be a rupee measurable activity.
Yeah.
If it is pro bono, it is not CSR. Let's be very clear about that.
But we offer
That
services.
which you cannot quantify in terms of money, it has to be
But we
rupee
quantify time.
Fine. You could do.
So I guess that section we will talk
We'll
about
address,
when it
because
comes
that
to
involves
that.
volunteering,
Yeah.
pro bono,
Yes.
which basically is about quantification of hours.
That's
But we'll
right.
come to that later.
That's right.
Okay, I have a question. Now, there could be companies, which do not have a very formally set up CSR committee, and this being mandated only from this year onwards, they may want to have some kind of a lead time. Now, looking to Schedule 7 to the Companies Act of 2013, one of the activities which has been listed out is contribution to the PM's National Relief Fund. So now, to understand what this really means in terms of implementation, to gain that kind of a lead time, can a company not contribute directly to the Prime Minister's Relief Fund for now and say, yes, it has complied with its objectives, and the board committee would also call due compliance?
Remember, why for now? It can do so for all time.
Yeah.
Technically. You
Technically,
can contribute to it every year. I have 20 crores, I dump it in the PM Relief Fund, I go home.
Yeah.
As the law stands today,
Yeah.
you can.
Okay.
Remember, Mr. Rajesh Bhargav will need to sign a one-line policy. And with him will be Mrs. Rekha Sharma and whoever else. And each of them will prepare a one-line policy for the board. Deposit in PM's Relief Fund. That is your policy. You expect the board to pass it? If my name is out in the public domain, will I allow you to pass it?
And that is the reason I said the first year.
So
till such time we
our
gain confidence.
situation is name and shame. Comply or explain. The law permits you a lot of leeway. Do whatever you want. But it's how thick your skin is that matters. Because the media, the public activists, government, shareholders, stockholders, stakeholders, everyone will come at you. Because in your director's report, the policy is there, activities are there, names are also there. So whereas you can get away technically with some things, it's up to you. But let me not take that lightly. Let me address your question seriously. Why was that number 9 in Schedule 7 included? We can go there for a second. In the activities, go back one slide. These are the activities currently listed in Schedule 7. If you look at number 9, then you will see what he is saying. Actually, the reason behind putting number 9 was exactly what you are saying. Our idea was that suppose you have a very small budget in the first year. Your budget is 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, whatever. And you find that you have not prepared yourself fully. And you think the amount is small enough, well, at least you can say to the board and to government that at least for the first year, we put it in the PM relief fund while we get our act together for later. The second reason why it's there is because, let's say this company has a 40 crore budget. On the 28th of March, it finds that it has spent 39 crores and 80 lakhs. 20 lakhs are still left out, which it can't spend in 3 days. Then it allows you the option of putting a small proportion there just to fulfill the 2%. The intention was, rather than lose that momentum, if you've done already 90% or 95% of your work, there's still something left, then you can put it here. That was the intent of the legislation, to give you an escape valve.
That's right.
Things should not be so tight that you have absolutely no space to move. That was the attitude towards this.
Would we be coming back to this in terms of...
Yeah, in due course, yes. Alright, so very quickly, so let's go back to what the committee is supposed to do, because these are the things you need to do before 31st of March 2014. So then, here is exactly what you were saying. 3C. That's where our IT is going to come in a very big way. If you were 3 members of this board and you were charged with the responsibility of monitoring all the 200 projects, what would you ask your MD? I know what I would ask him. What would you ask your MD?
The staff to monitor.
Of course. What else?
Some tool to set it
Very
up.
good. Staff and tools. If I had a 40 crore budget and I had 200 activities to monitor, how would I do that? I come every 3 months. I attend the board meeting in a metropolitan city of India, and I go back. And I spend 6 hours of my time on the corporate board table. How will I monitor 200 activities spread out across the length and breadth of India? So what would I ask my MD? The Act says I must monitor. Mr. MD, give me the staff and the tools. And if you don't, and I can't monitor, and I go down, what will I do? I won't go down alone. I'll take you with me. So, Broadly speaking, the onus will be on the company to provide the tools and the staff to ensure that each of your 200 activities is broken up into milestones, which you will monitor physically and financially. In order to do what? D. Next slide. Look at 4B. Ensure that the activities as are included in the CSR policy of the company are undertaken. Of those 200, let's presume that 199 actually take place and one does not. Then what? And presume, unlike what he said, you have not changed it in the course of the year.
Then as per the schedule, we'll have to report it as we had
And
budgeted
you
something and
are
we're not spending.
personally liable and responsible, Mr. Rajesh Bhargav. You are personally responsible and liable. Now suppose I am the MD of this company and I asked for 3 persons to volunteer. How many would?
Would volunteer provided we get the
I
required.
asked you that question so that you didn't know what was to follow. But when you become a member of the CSR committee, you will be the most responsible committee of the board. More than the audit committee, more than the HR committee, more than the finance committee. This will be the single most important committee of the board. And the single most accountable. See how beautiful this legislation is. The impact of it has not gone down to you people yet. But when 31st of March looms, with it will also loom your D-Day. That's why I'm trying to tell you that if you prepare from now and prepare well, then you will have an excellent CSR program. Idea is not to deter you. Idea is to make you aware that you should use this preparatory time well, so that when the clock starts ticking, you have everything in place, in position. The committee is formed, the CSR policy is approved, the monitoring mechanism is in place, and then you start your activities. Then you are prepared. And if there are any genuine mistakes, you change them in the course of the year. That's all we are saying. Idea of government is not to come after you. Idea of government is to give you an enabling atmosphere where you can do a great CSR policy for which the rest of the world will be envious. That's our task. Next. Yes, ma'am. You were saying something.
Yeah, I just want to, share this. I think no questioning the intent behind this or any of that. I think practically speaking, 6 months is probably too short a time for people to be prepared. For
making one committee and writing one policy.
No, that's hardly the issue. If you want us to specify projects, and I'm saying I'm in really no hurry to turn around and try and say Prime Minister's Relief Fund. That's not the way I think our corporate should be. And I'm saying we've been in this space for 6 years. We have a fairly focused program. None of the others even faze me when you tell me monitoring timelines. It's what we do anyway. I think realistically, probably budgets are going to double or triple or whatever it is from everybody.
This is going up 50 times.
Yeah, and for a corporate that's just not prepared, so I'm sort of just sharing this. Maybe they'll be better off than us. To get to the level of the kind of monitoring that we'd like to do to make sure that we have impact at the other end. Picking a project for the sake of a project because we have to spend the money is a tick mark. Making sure that state requires that impact or that project deserves the attention it needs takes a lot more than 6 months. It's taken us 3 years to get to the state where we're managing to train 30,000 people a year. And that's come because we build in the rigor, we build in the capacity of the non-profits to program manage, build in technology, and that's the kind of stuff that we do. So I don't know if others share this thing, but 6 months is really
too short.
It's
very, very short.
I'm sure we all need to make a start, and I'm not doubting that, but I really think practically speaking, and we have our own internal governance. I have my financial year that started just now. I have to do a complete juggling between the Indian fiscal year and taxation year and this. So I think 6 months for us to do justice is making a start by all means. I mean, everybody's, and we're in this room today because we want to put our best foot forward. But practically speaking, I think it is something that, we need to think about in terms of doing a good job with it.
Just give me an idea. Do you think government has thought about this or hasn't? What you said just now.
Very candidly, I don't think we all have
think
thought
so.
granularly
I don't
at
think they
all.
understand the effort involved to get it going in the right spirit. I don't think it understands.
No,
I think a company which they are very well organized, we are not.
What if I were to convince you differently? What if I were to convince you differently?
It takes a lot more time.
Hang on. Why do you think government hasn't thought about it? Why would you presume
I
that
work with the
government didn't
government.
think about it? Why do you presume that?
No, I'm not saying
I don't think
I think it's very almost impossible to get this done the way you have defined it.
But what is it that you
half an
haven't
hour
seen?
ago. I mean,
What is it that you
half an hour.
haven't seen?
Sorry?
What is it that you haven't seen? Because I haven't come to it yet. I'm listening to each one of your
I'm commenting on what has been discussed till now. I'm
so
saying
now
that
see
it's
how we have
extremely
taken care of
difficult.
that, okay?
Sure.
This very position that you talk about is something that we've thought through with great meticulousness. These are not thoughts that are just coming to you. These are thoughts which were given to us 2 years ago when we discussed with at least 2,000 companies across the country. These rules have not been made, or the act has not been drafted without a humongous amount of consultation. Every single reservation that you have has been gone over at least 100 times. So don't think that what you're saying is so novel that nobody's thought about it. But what you say is something that is true. And if we are not able to provide you with an escape valve, then we will not be able to bring you on board. The purpose of the legislation is to do what? Not to turn you guys off, but to provide an enabling atmosphere so that you come on your own steam in your own time. And come not because we want you to or government wants you to. You come because you want to. If it comes out of compulsion, then it's zilch. You can write it off. Our desire is that you should come because in the heart of hearts, you want to come. If you don't want to come, this is a piece of waste paper. So let me take you through how we have addressed your concern. Okay? Now this is the very controversial 2% of the average net profits, all right? Which begs the question that let's say your 2% comes to 40 crores and you list those 200 activities and you say quite honestly, neither can I spend 40 crores nor can I do 200 activities. It's not possible. So then what? So then this. Next please. Provided that if the company fails to spend, all you need to write is one sentence. We need a longer gestation period. We need more time to think. We have begun our work. Full stop. 3 sentences. Remember that every single concern of yours, I will answer before I leave. There cannot be anything that we have not thought of. It is with great meticulousness that every little thing has been addressed. We have said, for example, Suppose you are a person who does not believe in CSR. You could be. Why would I presume that everyone should be fond of CSR? You could say CSR is trash. It's a load of rubbish. I don't believe in it. And if you said that in your return to the government, would you be at risk? Legally? Yes, of course, your stakeholder, shareholder, they would attack you, and so would the media and so on. But technically, would you be at risk? Suppose you said, CSR is for the government to do. As a corporate, I pay 30% tax to the government. Why the hell can't the government get its act together? Why should we do it? And you write all of this in your return. Technically, are you right or wrong?
No, once it becomes a law, once it becomes a legislation, okay, then it
Again,
becomes mandatory.
we have thought through everything. Technically, you can simply write, all this is hogwash. We do not believe in CSR. Government can go to hell. That's it. You don't do anything. Government will do nothing to you. Because it cannot under the law. Let's go a step further and ask ourselves that suppose I decided that CSR is rubbish. I will never in my life do CSR because intellectually I'm opposed to it. So I neither do CSR nor do I report to government. I do not give any reasons. I neither do nor report. Then what? I don't do, I tell the government, my reason is that I hate you guys, get the hell out of here, I will not. That's my reason. Government has not specified that you can give only these reasons and nothing else. You can write anything. But if you don't do, and you also don't write any reason of your choice, then what? The principle here is comply or explain. Then you put yourself at risk. Okay? What is the risk? Please tell us. This is the risk.
Are we
Those
saying
of you
that
who put up your hands, we're taking back our word. Welcome to the party.
No,
Welcome to the party.
So I'm asking about the intent of this. I understand legality. The idea is for us as a corporate group, whether it's private or public sector, to participate in this, right?
Our intention is we should never ever use this. By the grace of God, 99.99 infinity, we will never use this. But the media constantly asks the parliamentary committee that you're bringing in a piece of legislation. And don't mind us saying so, corporate India consists only of thieves and chores. They will find a way of getting around any legislation. You cannot trust any corporate to do anything. And media is fond of saying what it wants to say. Now, presumption is that corporate India will never agree with this act. It will engage a team of liars to find a way out. It will cheat the people as it has always cheated. So then, if corporates cheat, what will the government do? As usual, it will keep mum, because it will be a lame duck government. It will go on doing moo 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 but do nothing. Government is powerless. Corporate India will go on cheating the people. Government will only be a watcher. What is it that government will do? Where are the teeth in the legislation? That is why this is the teeth. But the fact remains that the intent is never to use this as far as possible. And we hope that corporate India will take the spirit of the legislation. And it is only when somebody goes on and on and on and on, committing the same crime year after year after year, when public tolerance has reached a complete limit, only then at some point we may think of it. But it is there on the statute book is what I wanted to tell you. It is not to be feared.
Yes, so for clarity's sake, if a company chooses year after year to just say reasons given why they've not done it, but continue to not, utilize the money to a CSR, you're okay with that?
Yeah.
It's only if they do not report saying that this is hogwash, that this will come into effect.
Technically, your position is correct.
Okay.
Because the idea or intent is first give corporates a chance. This is the first time that India has ever brought this legislation. It's historic. If you don't trust the people for whom the legislation is made, then what's the point of bringing the legislation? You must dilute the trust deficit first. That there is a level of confidence in what we are doing together. We are partners, not adversaries. If you do, who will gain credit? Not just you, but the government as well. Not just you or government, but the NGOs as well. Not just the three of us, but the poor people whom we are benefiting. It is they who will benefit. So all in all, it is that partnership that we are trying to look at. Alright? So just go back to the rules one last time. We'll spend 5 minutes on that and then we'll take questions. So we said that you need to list the activities, specify the sectors, keep going. There are people here who are great fans and followers of Michael Porter, who believed in the concept of shared value. And I'm one of those, incidentally. Don't mark me as an adversary. We also believe that a lot of good social responsibility can also be addressed by good business models. It's not that to do social good, you have to desert business altogether. You may, you may not. That's your choice. Part of social good can come from your business projects. Part of it can come from standalone social projects. It's up to the company to decide. It's entirely your domain. But you will need to say that if I am doing this project, then is it a social business project or is it completely a commercial project? When you include it in your list of activities, you have to show that there is a social benefit flowing. And what is that benefit?
Even if there is a commercial...
Of course. You will need to quantify the social benefit that comes from the commercial benefit. For example, one of the most touted examples of such a shared value project is ITC's e-Chopal. Okay. End of the road, what does ITC do? At the end of the project, what do they do?
Buy those commodities.
It's a commercial project.
Yeah.
By doing what? How is it commercial?
They're buying that commodity.
They usually buy what they ask the farmers to grow.
What do they do at the end of the project? How do they make money? They manufacture Ashirvad Atta. And they sell Ashirvad Atta at a humongously profitable price. A to Z, if you were to question Mr. Devesher and ask him that right from Davos to God knows where, every year you speak only about this as the best CSR project of all time. End of the day, how much profit have you made from selling Ashirvad Atta? Please tell us. Now he will have to tell us. He cannot say that e-Chopal is what I do, it's a fantastic. Maybe it is. I'm not saying it is or it is not. Maybe it is. But he will have to tell us what benefit is he giving to the farmers of Madhya Pradesh who grow his atta. What improved seeds? What better animal husbandry? What better irrigation projects? What all does he give?
Please carry it. Sorry. Hi, how are you?
And end of the day, how much profit did you derive from selling the atta? And it's for you, the public, all the shareholders, all the stakeholders to decide how much of it is really CSR and how much of it is really profit. Now it is not for ITC to say this is the CSR because it is the best in the world. That they may believe. It's now for the public to say so. It's now for them to reveal exactly how much in terms of rupees. And when the public sees that the profit is 100 times what they spend on the farmers of Madhya Pradesh, how would you feel? The profit from Ashirvad Atta is 100 times the amount of CSR that they do, so-called CSR, for those 4,000 odd farmers that grow their wheat. Now it's for you to decide and the public to decide, because for the first time those figures will be in the public domain. They can still say it's CSR, they're perfectly at liberty, but they'll have to say it in the public domain and they will have to reveal the money element. Okay?
So the point here is that ITC can show each-of-all as a CSR project or a program, a long-term program, as long as they can quantify the benefits or the impact that it's made, right? It doesn't matter that it's an input in, it's an input into their commercial part of the business.
They can definitely show it.
Unless the cost of implementing that project is not through an NGO.
No, there are many NGOs there.
No, but if they're using internal resources to implement this project.
They can't. 4,000 farmers, they don't have personnel. But let's suppose it's a very small thing, 2 farmers, and 2 of their employees actually look after them. Yes, then what?
Then it doesn't count?
No, what doesn't count?
The cost of implementing.
The cost of those employees. Yeah, that's right.
No. If the company employees are on the permanent payroll of the company, then it will not count. But if they are part of the project and co-terminus with the project, and they draw their money from the amount allocated to the project, then they can.
So that you could have consultants as part of the project.
Totally.
Would implement.
Absolutely. And their entire space is taken care of. But your head of CSR in the company, you cannot show his salary as part of your CSR expenses.
Why not?
Not why not. This is it.
No, but I'm trying to understand the rationale behind
CSR is a consultant.
Sorry?
What is the CSR head as a consultant?
No. I'm not even looking at that. I'm saying
If that consultant is specific to a particular project, yes, definitely.
No, I think she's asking the question because we're at the point in time where the rules are still in draft. So I think the question still.
Yeah, some comments have been asked. We can give back to
precisely. So I think that's why Shita does ask this question.
Many fora.
Yes, I'm just trying to understand the rationale behind it. I didn't mean to be flippant about it or anything. I'm genuinely trying to understand why you would not think that my time and my expense, when all I do is CSR and I don't do any other role in the company, and I am directly an overhead, which you have specified here, on that set of projects. I'm not on any one. My team is entirely on all the programs that we run, and I don't do any other role. So why would that then not be considered as an overhead or an expense which is directly linked to delivering CSR or social impact?
The answer to that is, then we would also have to say you have an HR head, a finance head, a marketing head. All of them are permanent employees of the company. They supervise large verticals, right? Do we count the salary of the marketing head as part of your marketing budget? Yes or no?
You factor that cost somewhere.
No, not somewhere. Do you show it or not? I can factor her cost also into my CSR activity.
No, but you will.
But technically, because all your activities are now listed. In CSR, all your 200 activities are listed activities. How would I show her? Because she's not part of any single activity.
Her time can be
No,
part of
full-time
multiple
if she's
activities.
If she is
right?
full-time your CSR employee, the rules say no. That's it. All right, next.
So,
But is this
the
open?
then
Let's go back.
the
Let's go
response
back.
would
This
be
is very
that
important.
they should
The
be
last
full-time
part.
in
No,
CSR.
it's closed. That argument is closed. Provided that
Why is that?
sorry.
Why is
Separate
that closed?
organization if it's a foundation and the person is an employee of the foundation, like in NASCOM's case.
Yeah. Now, if she's born full-time on your record books and she draws money from the funding of the main corporate, then no. But if she's part of any of those projects, then yes.
So the answer isn't that answer?
Completely. We thought through this very, very carefully because this question
don't
was
have
asked
full-time employees.
many, many times.
But I think
Put them
there's
in
a lot of,
projects.
I think there continues to be some
Seriously.
debate on this point because we've seen past versions of the rules where internal costs were
You
included.
can still
right?
try. All right. But we've been through this a lot and there was a conscious decision taken that any permanent employee of the company, his or her emoluments will not be part of CSR expenditure. And that's more or less now a given. Okay. Now, suppose you say that you have a CSR activity, which is, let's say, running a hospital. Okay? You run that hospital as part of your CSR activity. Out of running that hospital, you make large quantities of profit. Can you show the profits from that CSR activity as part of the profits of the company?
Law says, rules say no. No.
Right. Morally, we should say no, because if it's a CSR project, then you would not want it. You would like to plow the profits back into the project. I'm not saying that you shouldn't make profits, because we're encouraging social business projects. So we have said very clearly in the rules and in the Act that no longer must social good be done necessarily by not-for-profits. Social good can be done by profitable companies. There's no harm in that. But if a project is specifically, let's say, running a college in some interior area and you are charging high capitation fees and you are making substantial profits, will that be a CSR? The rules say no. Okay? You were saying something?
So in the rules it says that you need to get your activities undertaken through a non-profit. So
that we're changing actually, because social business projects is there in Schedule 7, so that will overrule the rules. That is one part which I wanted to take up with Anaki. Okay, let's go faster.
Oh, so that's definitely changing because that's already
Yes,
something that's come up
absolutely, because
multiple
we
times.
want to make sure that we have social business projects on board. India is entering into a completely new area, new era. Our legislation is the most modern legislation anywhere in the world. The thought behind it is the most evolved. And we don't want to be stuck with antediluvian legislation, which pushes us back. Okay? Next.
So, sorry, one clarification on this point. Because we don't have official tax designation of a social business, we don't have a B Corp or these other kinds of labels that exist in other countries, will there be some criteria to say this is a social business and this is not?
No, you will need to be set up as companies under the Companies Act. There is a process of setting up the company.
Sure.
Basically, there are three types of companies. One is, of course, those which you set up as Section 25 companies.
Which is not Section 8.
Which basically is quite an involved process.
Yeah.
Mostly if you want to do, as the lawyer told us this morning, Section 25 is problematic. But people do set up Section 25 companies.
It's still a non-profit.
Then we have what is now coming under, I think, Section 8 companies.
Section 8.
Which used to be the old one. So that is also one kind of company. Then of course your trust, your societies, all of those are also implementing agencies. Now, a corporate can implement CSR through any one of these modalities. It can also implement by itself if it wants to. You are at liberty to employ an army of people and do CSR yourselves if you want to. But government doesn't expect that you will suddenly start increasing your payroll nor employ more people. Government's expectation is that you would outsource this activity to implementing agencies such as social business startups or social business companies, trusts, societies, foundations. All of those are permissible for implementing your CSR.
But a Section 8 company is not allowed to distribute profits. So it's not really considered a business.
Then it's a Section 8 company. But you are at liberty to form a company which is allowed to make profits. Question of what you want to form. You can have a trust, you can have a registration, you can have a Section 25, you can have a for-profit company. You can do whatever you want to, but the choice is yours.
So in terms of the implementation, for example, we need to build a school and you need a contractor to build
He's
the
the
school.
implementing agency.
But that is a private limited company.
So what?
You can do the
Absolutely,
implementation.
no problem. How can an NGO build a school? You need carpenters, masons and stuff. Perfect. You're going to lay a water line from the source of the water to the village. How will the NGO bring brick, mortar and iron pipes? There your implementing agency is a private contractor.
And if it's a social entrepreneur, for example,
private limited company.
Totally. Completely.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about the monitoring mechanism, and that's where the great IT strength of India hopefully will come, because these projects need to be well monitored. Okay, next. This is your trust Section 8 company.
I have a question. Can multiple companies, let's say part of the same entity but multiple entities, form a single trust?
Of course.
They can.
No problem. Why would you like to multiply expenditure by having so many trusts?
That's
if you have one, it's good enough. In fact, you will see Coca-Cola, where we were a few days ago, they have some 23 companies.
Yeah.
But there is only one foundation. All of the CSR activity of those 23 companies, including some very big bottling plants, are all done through the foundation. So that's a good thought.
So if you don't have a central foundation, but for example, we're the parent company and we may have a subsidiary, then does that subsidiary, if it qualifies because of the turnover and profit, still have to have its own governance mechanism with directors and everything? It can't be that it's the central governance is done by us, even though the profits are, the 2% is included. I'm not walking away from the 2%. I'm just talking about the governance.
It has to have.
Has to have its own.
Okay. So, but then if we create a trust,
if you create a separate, then
you can do the work through them.
So you could, but then do you also pull in your 2% into that trust?
You could if you want
to.
You
could, right? Of course. Then you can manage that.
Yeah, but then you have to set up a central trust.
I think one of the basic tenets of the law is that there is encouragement of collaboration, and whether that's within the companies or it's among varying companies. So for example, the NASCOM Foundation has been spearheading the National Digital Literacy Mission in partnership with Deity as well. And we already have 3 companies on board, Intel, Microsoft, and Google. We're welcoming others, of course, especially as the 2% becomes mandated. But that's an example of a collaborative effort that's going for a greater good.
Okay, next. Yeah, this is the number 5 part, which is very important. Suppose you as a company, let's say Mindtree, wants to get 20 projects done over the year, and you want to outsource all of those 20 projects to implementing agencies. Okay, you have a CSR head who ultimately is the ultimate supervisor of this, but she or he will supervise what the NGOs are doing. Now, which NGOs will you choose, or which enterprises will you choose, is entirely your choice. Government is not going to get involved with any of that area. Your choice is your choice, your board's choice. But it lays down a minimum criteria that please choose such organizations who have at least a 3-year track record of doing such work.
Any specific reason for doing that? The company should
We believe that for an agency to be credible, it should have some experience in the field. There are many who said, we've only done 2 years, so why don't we come in? So they wait a year, you come in. I mean, the year is not the end of the world. By the time the corporates actually get their act together, it will be a year in any case. So, एक साल wait कर लो, then come on board. What's the big deal?
But if they form a separate corporate foundation, that won't have been in existence for 3 years.
Yeah, then you do it through other NGOs for the first 3 years. Then you do it through the foundation.
But they're even social enterprises, they may not have.
Yeah, they need to develop the expertise for 3 years. There are many who said that you can bring it down to 2 years, and many suggestions have come already. Your choice, you can make that suggestion. But the committee, the rule-making committee, put it at 3 years.
So this doesn't apply to a trust that you are forming, which would be you wouldn't have.
It does.
See, your trust is not directly doing CSR. Your trust can be 3 days old. But if the trust is getting it done through the NGO, it is the NGO which has to have 3 years.
But in case somebody is trying to build capacity and trying to do things on their own instead of going through an NGO or any other social setup, then
it's your own company personnel.
yes.
You are more than 3 years old as a company.
Definitely.
So go ahead.
But not perhaps in this particular area. So.
If you give it to an NGO or an implementing agency other than yourselves, then that agency should have had 3 years. If you do it on your own, fine.
But if she does it, or let's say she does it through this trust, which is a new entity, right?
Yeah.
It's still a separate entity. So
No
that-
problem.
No problem.
Trust is giving it to whom?
If trust is doing it themselves.
No.
Themselves.
Then there's a problem.
Then the problem,
Then
right?
there's a problem.
That's what she's
Yeah, yeah.
indicating.
Then there's a problem.
That's a problem.
Then the trust which is actually doing the work
Hmm.
should have been 3 years.
3 years.
So any implementing body has to have had 3 years of
Suppose
trust.
it is my own baby company or something.
That's a new entity, separate entity. That's what. And the spend, more clarification on the spend. Let's assume that we are doing something to do with one of the 9 items in Schedule 7, and some of the money is for public awareness creation, media spend, and so on. That's still acceptable?
If it's part of your project, it is.
Yes.
There was a very bright lady this morning who asked me that we are doing a waste management project. And as part of that project, we take a colony who deposit their trash in certain earmarked bins. Our project runs for 3 years, and we are trying to sensitize that colony to the benefits that come from waste management. And therefore it qualifies under
Environment and sustainability.
Now, in order to get that to succeed, we have to do a lot of awareness generation among the people of that colony. So, will that awareness generation and the distribution of pamphlets, posters, and so on count? And I said, definitely yes, because your project can't succeed unless you have sensitized those people.
Yeah.
So, if you have projectivized it and said, from this project, we will do this project in 3 years, this much of the project cost, let's say 100 rupees, 10% I have reserved for creating awareness. 15% I have kept for paying people who will actually do it, because every project will have a personnel cost. 5% I have kept as incidentals. That's also allowed. Whenever you projectivize, every single cost of the project is admissible.
Any cost-based marketing will it work? For example, wherein
Yes.
the
If that marketing
expense
is for creating awareness, or you bring
No, as long as it's linked to a project.
It has to be linked to
Not
the
where
project
it
and
says
specified.
that, I sell biscuits
idea.
and 1 rupee of that is going to go towards charity.
The cigarette company came to me the other day and they said, we do these bravery awards.
Yeah.
And they gave me this very fancy invitation card. And they said, if you come, it will be counted as CSR. You guys are doing an event on a stage, distributing awards. How on earth can that become CSR? No, these become icons of society. Everyone in our country will become brave. That's good enough here. But who's it benefiting? It's a one-time event. So such kind of one-off, one-time charities, donations, events, they will not count under CSR. So, just to conclude, a couple of quick things. For an activity to be CSR, we can tick box a few things. One, it must be rupee measurable. Therefore, if you go back to the National Voluntary Guidelines or to other forms of CSR, there are things like ethics, things like human rights, things like employee engagement. Because these are not strictly rupee measurable, they do not form part of CSR, but form part of corporate governance. Okay? We're not saying don't be ethical, please be, but don't put your non-measurable rupee items into CSR. Okay? So it must be rupee measurable. Number two, it must be projectivized or programmed, whatever name you want to give to it.
Program definition is very similar to the project.
I told you those 4 things.
Yeah, but same.
That's it.
Okay.
You might say my program is 3 years long. What do I show for this year? So you allocate the expense for that year out of the 3-year project. That's all. If it is done in compliance with any act or regulation, then it is not CSR.
What would an example be?
You are releasing effluents into the nearby river and polluting it. And the Pollution Control Board tells you, reduce the pH level by 3. And you install machinery in your company to reduce that. Now that you have done as a compliance to the notice served on you by the Pollution Control Board. That won't count as CSR. Okay? That which benefits the marginalized. This CSR is for poor people. The target group is important. CSR must be addressed to address the social and economically deprived people in our country. It's meant for the poor. It's meant for people. It's meant for communities. One bank comes to me and says, oh, you know, sir, our CSR this year was incredible. I said, I know, I've heard it before. What was your incredible CSR? 10 lakh tons of paper, sir, we saved in our 1200 branches. This is our CSR. Is it CSR or is it not? They said, you know, ultimately saving of paper is for the betterment of humanity. We have saved so many trees from being cut. These are efficiencies which we have developed within our own organization. Therefore, this must be CSR. And frankly, you can argue on this till the cows come home. You can say yes, you can say no. What's the answer though, as far as the act and the rules are concerned? Sorry, no. What to talk about private companies? Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, one of the Maharatnas, about to become a Maharatna. Now Navaratna, about to become. Says, you know, in our Rishikesh plant, we actually saved 50 grams of water. In the whole year, we saved 50 grams of water. In order to save 50 grams of water, we spent 1 crore of rupees because we installed machinery. So 1 crore is our CSR expenditure. Yes or no? Now you may have saved 50 grams or 500 grams or 5,000 grams or whatever number of grams. But technically speaking, you are not directly benefiting something that you've done for your internal efficiency. Again, you can argue both ways. 5,000 drops of water more for the world at large. The ocean will rise by 1 inch. You can say whatever you want to. But for the purposes of the act and the rules, it must not count as CSR. Okay?
How would you,
No, go ahead.
environment sustainability,
Yes.
planting trees, rejuvenating lakes, how do you put a number?
Now again, projectivize it. Aimless planting of trees, for heaven's sake, please don't. The single biggest horrendous form of paying obeisance to sustainability is to plant trees. Don't plant trees, whatever you do. Please never ever plant a tree even by mistake. I haven't stopped. I need to complete the sentence. Unless it is part of a system or a project.
That's right.
Where the trees will be looked after, protected, preserved, planned, to yield those benefits which you planted the tree for, not to be eaten by goats and such as that. Aimless and rapid planting of trees brings society to its knees. Never do that. You're not being friendly to anyone. If you are planting trees, think through how many trees, which is the land. After 5 years, what will happen? What will those trees do? Who will look after them? What will they yield? All of those must be thought through before you actually. Tree plantations are a great idea, but plantations. So why the plantation? Okay. Once the project mode comes in, nothing haphazard will happen. That's the basic of the story. I rest my case. If there are any more questions, I'll be happy to. Yes, ma'am.
We didn't touch upon the bit about monetizing pro bono hours and volunteering hours in a product
we'll
donations.
go around the table for that. Okay. Now here are two streams of thought, and we have to try and reconcile them at some place. Volunteering. Let me give you an example, and you tell me. These are the executives of the Indian Oil Corporation, and all of them are entitled to 12,000 rupees of free medicine every month. The entire family never uses more than 1,000 or 2,000. 10,000 worth of medicines get piled up in their cupboard every month. So this group of executives, 5 or 6 of them, any Sunday when they are free, they collect all the medicines and they go as volunteers to wherever joggi they can find, and they distribute the medicines there. And this is reported as one of the CSR activities. Is this CSR or not?
No.
They're distributing medicines free.
The time might be, but not the medicine.
Yeah, so
I'm asking you hard questions because they keep coming at me.
The
And
time
always
is-
they can be interpreted one way or the other. My minister is very fond of giving an example when he says, this great company introduced for its executives organic food in its canteen and said it's our CSR. Is it or is it not?
no, that's employee welfare. It's fine. It's not.
So one of the tenets is, if it is HR, it is not CSR.
So
Okay?
if I could, sorry, go
So,
ahead.
when you want to quantify pro bono or voluntary, then our general approach, and you can take whatever approach you like because we don't have a rule on it, is to say that in this project, which is worth 100 rupees, the number of hours that the volunteer is spending is, let's say, 4 hours in a day or in a week. What is the worth of those 4 hours to the company?
The cost.
If he was drawing 1,000 rupees a day and it was 8 hours, it would be 500 rupees a day, simple as that. So in the project, you can build in what it would have cost the company if it were to engage that person full time and not giving him the volunteer. If the company feels no pain and says to the employee, your hours are 10 to 5, you do all your volunteering after 5 o'clock, I don't care. There's no company policy on volunteering. On your way back, spend half an hour, 1 hour, wherever you want and tell us. Then the worth to the company is not reflected. Our intention for pro bono, free legal advice. There are many marginalized communities who actually need free legal advice to help women's empowerment, for example. And in certain cases of, let us say, assault or battery or whatever, and this lady is in need of help, and you provide that pro bono, someone who is again marginalized or whatever, and you feel that in a normal course of practice it would have cost the company so much, then the pro bono can be quantified. I mean, that's our general approach. We can think of other alternatives, but so far that's what we have done.
So the volunteering hours have to be within the working hours. If it is beyond.
Preferably, because otherwise what is the company sacrificing?
The concept is paid volunteering versus unpaid volunteering. When you do paid volunteering, then you're not.
Company can't say I am doing CSR and tell the employee, "Arey yaar, tu kar apna."
You do.
That can't. The company must suffer. It must sacrifice. Then only it is CSR.
Yeah, I think, and this is probably true of a consulting company like ours or any services company, is when we are not likely to earn a revenue out of that person's time, because it's all billings at the end of the day, then, and if they are, like in our case, when they go off on a pro bono project, we have something called a non-chargeable cost, which is we are not earning anything on it, but their time is there. And that's what, it's system driven, we automatically know what it costs, there's no profit loaded onto that, but that is specific to a project. So we can do that.
Of course, 100%.
So added to it, I just have another question. We outsource our payroll giving, for example, to a non-profit, right? And they charge us admin fees on it because they're the ones who are going and monitoring the impact for our 25 or 30 non-profits that we, give money to. Can the admin cost that we pay the NGO be part of our CSR spend?
I didn't quite follow.
So
what they pay to an agency, which is an NGO,
for preparing the payroll.
No,
No,
preparing the
payroll giving.
No.
The philanthropy of your employees. They're promoting philanthropy among the employees. So they've created a process so that one doesn't have to write a check. It actually comes out of their paycheck. And
No,
that is
that's
being
not what it is.
payroll
There
giving.
is
Few of us all understand.
Yeah,
what
different.
That's why I
that we
wanted
pay
her to
our own.
clarify
We
that.
pay our own payroll giving agency. There is NASCOM Foundation, which is a facilitation NGO, which will have 25 other implementing NGOs with projects. Our money goes to them, which then gets dispersed. They monitor the projects on our behalf. We've outsourced that one program of ours to them. So they're obviously charging us a fee because they need people on their payrolls, etc., to just do that.
So what you've given to them is a CSR activity?
Yes,
and
it
they're
is.
charging you for it?
Yes.
Perfect.
So that's the cost that I would
See, it doesn't matter what they do or sublet. If you have outsourced what you are very clear in your mind is a CSR project to a foundation or an NGO, then it is perfectly alright, perfectly CSR. It doesn't matter what they can have 10, 20 agencies behind them. But as far as you are concerned, your project is implemented by them. Yes, ma'am.
To understand this, when you were talking about building a business case for the CSR activities, perhaps because, and before that you had even explained the clause for which these two people were differing, that it should be actually not so much stringent. So you said it could be deferred for say 2 to 3 years. You can explain that why you are not able to do that. So I'm considering a scenario in which we are deferring something for 2 to 3 years, and in the meanwhile we are able to generate actual business profits out of a CSR activity. So is it, understandable if out of that profit which we generate out of it, we spend on those, and that becomes a part of the overall spend?
Did you follow that question?
No, I'm saying
it was the example you asked earlier.
Can that be?
The surplus gets plowed back
You are
into
not
the
declaring that activity as a CSR activity. You are declaring to government that I have not done any CSR activity for these 2 or 3 years. Is that so?
No, I'm not declaring so. I'm saying that I'm doing the CSR activity, and that CSR activity is generating those benefits.
Some profits.
Some profits.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the company.
To the company, but those profits are kept aside to be used again back on the CSR project only. Yeah, but I'm saying that for those 2 to 3 years, we are even justifying that we are not going to spend 2% of our overall profits.
Sure. You may spend 0.2%,
Yeah,
0.1%.
and while in 2 to 3 years that accumulates and becomes good enough that we are able to spend it. I mean to say that we are able to generate a business of CSR from those projects.
Good.
So that's acceptable.
If you are plowing them back into those projects,
Yes.
those projects become more viable, more sustainable, better CSR. Fine.
But will that profit generated become a part of the 2%?
I guess she's talking about that corpus thing which will not.
And the corpus
Yeah.
would include 2% plus the
Plus
profit.
the profit.
That can't happen.
That's not.
That can't happen.
It's not in lieu of.
Yeah.
You're
Not
asking-
in lieu of.
It's not in lieu of.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And my second question was, I mean, that is because with the thought you would have drafted this and the overall intent behind it is getting pretty clear now. Say for 4 to 5 years or say 10 years down the line, do you think this could be something which is going to attract investors or, I mean, sometime SRI?
Why 10 years?
Right now it's
The market is flooded. I told you this 10 or 15,000 crores which companies will put as CSR now are being eyed by funds in Europe, America, everywhere. The buzz about Indian CSR is incredible. Everybody wants to pump in money here. They're looking for credible people. Funds, large pension funds, large health funds, they're all looking at opportunities. And therefore, many social business companies will actually thrive because of the investor interest.
Absolutely. No, I know whether you've sort of been tracking. It's an international organization called Social Venture Partners.
Yeah.
They have now started operations in India, primarily again with an intention of largely funding social enterprises.
Right.
Because then that creates a sort of framework so that it becomes more sustainable.
But I think the question that's being asked is, Social Venture Partners is a great example, but they're not using funds from the 2%.
They're not
They're
using.
they're
It's primarily
using
individuals or-
philanthropic
yeah,
funds
it's venture
and doing
philanthropy.
venture
Yeah.
philanthropy.
Yeah.
It is venture.
Whereas
But companies like them will soon start.
No, but interestingly, I just sort of went for a meeting of theirs. They are wanting to now provide a platform for enterprises who have this 2% to be a credible source where they will help enterprises run the CSR part of the activity. Which means really they'll bring in projects because they have a lot of connect on the NGO social enterprise side. So they'll be a bridge between enterprises.
3 or 4 questions from my side. And I'm particularly going to target the gentleman in the green t-shirt.
Where is he?
Because I'm fascinated by the cloud concept. Alright? So just a quick question. Now suppose that we are sitting here as a board and we're looking at the CSR work that the board is doing and you and I are joint MDs just for one of it. And we ask ourselves that we're going to start a 40 crore CSR program. Alright? What would be the question that you and I would ask as of course the chief executives of the company? First question I would ask is, in my company, who knows CSR?
Shoot the job.
99% of companies would go under. 99% of the 8,000 companies would go under. Because none in that company knows CSR at all. Suppose one person was to put up his or her hand and say, I know CSR. And you and I, being hard-boiled executives, would say, all right, give me your certificate, please. What would that person say? I don't have a qualification. All I've done is some work in that area. Where? Well, many years ago, before I came into the company, because the company hasn't done any CSR anyway. So how do I get my CSR program underway when I don't have anyone in my company who knows anything about CSR? Example, you and I are manufacturing shoe uppers. I have a leather factory and I manufacture my shoe uppers. Nothing to do with CSR. I don't even know what the acronym stands for. And then my company secretary says to me, hey guys, we got to do this CSR. I think we have about 10 minutes or so. What shall we do? Then I ask the question, all right, who's the CSR expert in my company? How will I start my CSR when nobody in my company knows anything about CSR? Now, if I were to ask that same question and say, guys, we got to launch a major marketing blitz. So, I need a new marketing guy. Where would I go to find him? I go to business school and recruit him off the market. Would I find a CSR guy in any school? I wouldn't, because there are no schools. In every aspect of technical expertise, which India now has, who has always played the starting role? When we wanted engineers, who supplied them? When we wanted management graduates, who supplied them?
Academic
Academia.
Who supplied them? Which sector? Very clearly, not the private sector. Then who? Who created the IITs, the IIMs? Always government. And so too in CSR. CSR professionalism will be one of the particular parts of the government program which we are launching in the next financial year. We will create a cadre of CSR professionals so that companies can use them.
That's great.
This program will be open not only to newer or younger people, but also to those people like you who might say that yes, I am good in CSR, I've been doing it a while, but I'd like to have a credential. And that too from the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, which is the apex body for CSR. And so we're in the process of trying to develop, after the rules are finalized, Act has come into place, a 9-month professional course, which is an online course, by the way. You need to only come to the IICA 3 times for all those 9 months, just for a day each time. And that will be the first IICA certified course for building professionals on CSR. Question 2 that hard-boiled executives like KK and me would ask is, we have a 40 crore program. Who are our implementing agencies? My CSR budget has gone up 4 times. I was doing 10 crores, now I will do 40. I was handling 5 NGOs, now I need 40 NGOs. Where am I going to get them from? Who are the credible NGOs? I was doing 2 sectors, now I want to do 8 sectors. I want to diversify into health, or women's empowerment, skill development. Who will help me there? Who can put up his hand and say, I will find you the NGO, sir, don't worry. Who will find me my NGOs?
Certification bodies, hopefully.
Who are they? Do you know of any?
No, we clearly believe NASCOM Foundation will play the role. That's clearly
How,
one of the
how
key
will
things.
she play a role? What will she do? She doesn't have the NGOs knocking at her door.
No, we consciously started that sort of
So
process.
she'll have to start a process.
Yeah.
Suppose she were to say that no sir, I don't believe in any process. I will take from those who are doing that process. Why will I create my own process and spend your money and my money? There are agencies
like charities
who are
aid
doing that
foundations.
process in any case.
In fact, since I sort of interact with SAP, there's an agency based out of Boston which has built a whole methodology for evaluating NGOs and how credible they are. We've been starting to talk to them. Obviously, at NASCOM Foundation, we'd like to bring in many of those, so that then we become a very credible source in terms of.
But you would become for yourselves.
No, I think what we want is clearly at this.
Member companies would, go to NASCOM
Absolutely,
and say,
absolutely, love
who are
to.
the good guys?
But imagine if all those companies said, we're going to build our own certification process.
Yeah.
How much of a waste of duplication and effort there would be?
But today,
So again the question comes, who should?
so aren't there like the charities aid foundations of the world? Can't they be vetted by the IICA today? Yeah, no,
Yes
because
ma'am, they can. And IICA will start
because
the first ever body for authentication and empanelment of NGOs in India. Why will IICA do this? For the reasons I told you. What will it rely on? The expertise already available in this country. Can you name one institution which has enormous expertise, a purely Indian institution? A purely Indian institution which has great expertise in empaneling and accrediting NGOs. Sorry?
Give India.
What is the status of Give India? Have you heard of Credibility Alliance?
Yes.
What is the status of Credibility Alliance?
Very small number of NGOs have gone through their process.
These are themselves NGOs
Yeah.
who are accrediting other NGOs.
Yeah.
What credibility does that give you? Fundamentally flawed. Who will trust an NGO that accredits other NGOs? There is only one institution in this country which so far has the expertise. And that expertise is only 2 years old because I gave to that institution that expertise. It is the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. So far, it is the only authentic, and that's where our minister is going now. It is the only authentic NGO accreditation process ever launched in India. But I had created that expertise for barely 110 public sector enterprises from April of 2010. We're going from about 110 organizations to 8 or 9,000, a multiplication of 80 times. So will TIS be able to do it? How long is their list, do you know? If you apply today, when will you get your accreditation? If you're lucky, 6 years. Therefore, we will now engage other organizations and subsume TIS within the IICA system. We will create that volume of accreditation which will suffice for the whole nation. Now, NASSCOM can create, of course, what you are doing, because you're doing it for the IT industry as a whole. But you, say, as an individual IT company, would also be free to access us if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Any other company, why IT? Any company which is doing CSR could say to us, we want to start an education process in Hoshiarpur district. Can you give us some NGOs? And we would use our database to recommend 3 or 4 NGOs who have good experience in the Punjab or elsewhere on education. And then you would be free to choose from them. So IICA would also become a major service provider, not just this overseeing of rules and regulations. That's a very small part of what we're supposed to do. Third, again the hard-boiled executive takes over and says, I do not believe the foundation. They are perpetually trying to cheat the board. I want credible shelves of projects. I want watertight projects for my company to do. Apart from CSR professionals and apart from credible NGOs. What do you want? You want credible projects. Because everyone sitting around the board will say we can do an iCamp here, we can do a small half a kilometer road project here, we can send a mobile van there. That's no CSR. Where are the credible projects? That's where my friend in the green t-shirt comes in. Because in that cloud, and I intend to engage him seriously on this subject, we in the IICA are trying to create in the cloud a shelf of credible projects. And it is for any of those 8,000 companies to search the cloud and locate a project. Now you and I, hard-boiled as we are, can simply go to the cloud and say, this is a project I like. This is an IICA cloud project. So it's gone through due diligence. Now this project is worth 100 crores over 5 years. I will be happy to fund 20 crores over 5 years. And you bid, give it to us. So we find 80 crores from other interested people. And we provide the platform from synergies between corporates. And you're happy because who's promoting this? Not your competitor. The IICA, the national body. So it's okay, if the IICA is doing it, great, we're ready to come on board because, you know, we have a clear perspective. We're giving it to a national institution. We get to monitor it. We get to see it. We get a chance to choose the agency along with IICA, whatever else you want. So we will also act as a platform which will synergize some of the energies of the corporate sector. That's a third thing which we intend to do. So some of all this...
So maybe a suggestion there, I think that's a great idea in terms of to aggregate all the possible projects, give information on that so more people come in. The other aspect which could become in a way useful is, in many of these projects there's some deployment of technology and a solution. Can we gather that information? Because right now at Mindtree we are building a platform for waste management. It's that we are doing it on a basis and we'd love it to be taken all over the place.
So
similarly,
that's one
many other
area where I
companies-
was telling Gitanjali that with Mindtree we can look at a couple of initiatives between IICA and Mindtree, which gives us that ability to build that synchronization. Last off, and that's where we have to
Sorry,
close
what
for
is the time frame for you all to...
It will take me at least 18 months, frankly, like you, and that's why I shared your...
But you're not giving us the leeway.
I must caution
You're giving us 6 months.
Because I knew that...
No, I must caution
How
you.
reason to write in 6 months.
No, I'll tell you,
That would be good
even
enough.
being a part of the technology industry, at NASSCOM Foundation, we have tried to gather all the good work which many IT companies are doing in the area of CSR. Let me tell you, it has been a Herculean task to get that information and have a credible database, which I think it took us certainly beyond 18 months. So I think initially there is that hesitation in terms of giving that information. But I think
We
once
were
it
sharing
starts...
a joke with each other because she said something which to me sounded a bell in my mind, very genuine concern, and which I share very deeply from the bottom of my heart, which is to get corporates to come on board on their own. It's all right for me to prescribe, can you come aboard in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? That's a stupidity. Everyone must come on board on his or her own time. And if you cannot by the 1st of April, so big deal. Even if you can come aboard partially, not a problem. But the process needs to start. Okay, I'll close with one last thing. I want to build, and this is my own individual passion, the single biggest data bank of CSR practices in the world. Someone wants to do a project in Tokyo, he will access my website first. Someone wants to do a project in Jakarta, he will access us first. India will be the example and the repository of the ultimate data bank of good practices in CSR. And that's another instance why I want to partner with Mindtree or anyone agency that you suggest. Because you guys have tremendous expertise. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
I want to say to the world that we have a seminal piece of legislation that is a world leader. And what we do in CSR is for the rest of the world to look at and admire. And if you want good practices, don't waste your time with Sheffield or Sussex or Middlesbrough. Look at our IICA website and see how CSR is done. So it will give us great credibility. Suppose you were to ask you, KK, how much has corporate India done in CSR in the last 5 years? Would you be able to take a shot at it?
No, we don't.
Would anyone be able to take a shot at it? Popular answer is GOK. God only knows. Because we've never documented.
Yeah.
Now, first off, starting 1st of April 2014, we will have the first documentation in the history of the world. If I ask Michael Porter, dear friend, what has the US done on CSR for the last 5 years? Tell me. You are the author of those great experimental books which you wrote. Can you give me anything? What will he say? Oh, well, Dr. Chatterjee, it's been great knowing you. Have a cup of tea, my friend. That's where the conversation will finish. Because he won't have enough. He is not empowered to build that answer. But in the IICA, we are empowered because all of those reports and returns would come to us. We would compile them, analyze them. So out of that database, the next step is the analytics. Again, your strength. Why am I talking all this here? Because very quickly, if I wanted to know that in the 124 backward districts classified by the Planning Commission, how much money was spent? How would I know? Because your report and return would specify where you spent, which district. So I would be able to combine very quickly with your IT experience that in education, in these 120 odd districts, a total of 8 crores was spent last year. A member of parliament wants to know, in his constituency, which corporate spent how much money? How would I reply to that member of parliament? Because of these analytics. We could ask these questions. How much did the IT industry spend? Would you be able to answer that today?
Even now, I don't think we have.
But when we have the analytics, you'll be able to answer that.
Absolutely.
So that is one space to know where India is going. Where is our nation going? What are we doing on CSR collectively? Those answers again, we will be able to provide. It's something that no one has ever gone before. That's the strength of this act. So thank you for giving me a patient listening.
What's the question?
We're not letting you go.
We're not done yet.
We're not done
Somebody is
yet.
going to kidnap me and push me out of here.
Incubation centers
Hmm.
in academia, that would also be considered as CSR spend. Something in the budget.
Sorry, I got distracted. Yeah.
Sorry, something about incubation centers in academia.
That's right. That was
part of the
there
budget,
in the draft.
draft
The budget thing came.
And that would be considered under CSR spend. Is that, I don't see that at all in the Schedule 7.
No, we haven't, because what's the incubation for? Would it help the marginalized or the disadvantaged?
It would, because the intention was more in the context of saying when you do these incubation centers and they build technology which is relevant to solve local problems, that's really the way it helps.
Then you projectivize it.
Projectivize.
Simply say that these are the incubations, these are the companies coming out of it when they are created, these are the communities they will address. These solutions will benefit these disadvantaged communities.
No, because just to give you a very specific example, in a sense, as a company, we're working with a company which is building affordable healthcare for rural India.
Yeah.
Primarily because 80% of the blindness in rural India happens because you don't identify either a cataract or a glaucoma on time, and the imported equipment costs 45 lakhs. So this group of entrepreneurs have built it at less than 1/10 the cost. They are now shipping it out for 3 lakhs. So what you're doing is, as a part of CSR, now we're going and talking to corporations, saying that, hey, can you support this? It's completely portable, runs on standard batteries. So we've tied up with Vasan Eye Care and others, so that you go to the village.
You have this distribution project of portable healthcare, and you say that over a period of 1 year, we'll distribute so many of these, and the benefit that will accrue to the community will be this.
No, but his question is to incubate those companies.
No, in an academia is what I was.
In an academia. So
right?
I am Bangalore.
Specifically, that has not been built into
It's
our.
not
No, it was not. It was there in the first draft.
It was
like
there.
I said.
But it hasn't.
It hasn't come in here.
No, but why? Because see, to be honest, to build other companies like this, if I am Bangalore is a credible entity, they have an incubation center. And like you rightly said, a project.
Put it in the suggestions.
Yeah, I think
I
we should.
tend to think that what you say has merit.
Yeah.
And we had also put it in. But in the rules committee, we have many opinions. And despite my best efforts, this is one which got shot down.
Shut down.
So if you guys put your shoulders to it and
Absolutely.
Okay.
Talk to us.
Because you can do that in academia and
Yes,
students will
absolutely.
contribute to get some new things.
happiest person in this room will be Divya here, who looks after the whole incubation space.
A question on the private company again, and I've been specifically asked by my controllership to check this. We don't declare our profits in the public domain, not even in the director's report. So it's
because
it's a
you're
question of
subsidiary.
we're a private limited company.
Oh, private. Okay.
So how does one protect the sort of our data privacy on this one?
No, are you a registered company with the registrar of companies?
Yeah, but we're a private limited company. So
Well,
if only the shareholders
the
can
registrar of
access.
companies will not accept your financial return if you don't declare the profit.
No,
Not
no,
public.
it will not be public.
Can you advise us, sir?
Yeah. So as private limited companies are concerned, the P&L account
It's only in the
is
P&L.
only the P&L account which is not in the public domain.
That's right.
But then the director's report, the board report which Dr. referred to, okay, that also has a gist of the profit of the company, the turnover and profits of the company in the director's report. As also, there are certain mandatory provisions which shall form part of the director's report. For example, conservation of energy and all that. The new Companies Act of 2013 has added a few more clauses. CSR is one of them.
Okay, so
But that's not
I'm not
accessible
the
to public.
expert. As
Yeah.
far as I was told that even in our director's report, it is not easily accessible.
It's not
only
public.
in
It's
the
not public.
P&L account. It's only in the P&L which I as a shareholder can pay money and go and access. But here, if I remember what was said in terms of reporting, we were asked to declare the net profits of the company, which we don't do.
It forms part of the director's
Now
report.
look at
The very
this.
first
This is
clause
the
in the
reporting.
director's report.
We just spent 2
Yeah.
minutes on it.
Yeah. So
But
if-
this is mandatory for you to fill.
Yes.
This is not voluntary.
Both for private and public.
Everyone who qualifies under the Companies Act.
Companies.
It says CSR project, sector, projects and programs, you have to declare the district and the state, the amount spent on the project or you propose to spend, actually the amount spent, cumulative spending up to the reporting period, the amount spent through the implementing agency. But if you go further up, scroll up. No. Part of the report and return. Yes, stop. No, next. The part where they have to declare the 2%. Yes.
This is, yeah, that's the problem that they're
Now,
having.
here I have
And
a
this is
question
public.
on point number 4, Doctor. Now, when you say it's 2% of the profits of the preceding 3 financial years, now many companies do not have the financial years April, March. For example, we have it October, September, which are
What do
the
you do
annual
for your
accounts.
financial reporting?
Financial reporting is October, September.
No,
What
the
is
tax
how to
return.
analyze
Tax
Returns,
returns.
of course.
Standard.
Tax returns is April, March.
That's it.
But then that does not form part of, we do not prepare a director's report or a board report as on 31st of March. And the requirements are all related to the company's financial year, and the director's report, the board report are all linked
all
to the
linked to the company's
company's
health. So
financial
I
year.
think that's
So
our
that
issue.
is something we may have to
All right,
have
that's
a
a good
clarity
point,
on.
just jot
Yeah.
that down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the
Those who have a
multinationals will
reporting
have.
year other than
Yeah.
our Indian financial
right.
reporting year.
Of course, under the new Companies Act of 2013, it says the uniform accounting year shall be April to March. However, companies which are sponsored or subsidiaries of foreign companies, they have an option to apply to the government and have their own financial years.
Which is what all of us have.
Yes.
And if they do, then what?
Yeah, if they do apply,
Government grants them permission,
yes.
then what?
Then we face this
Then
challenge.
what will they report? Good
Exactly.
point. I think this we need to look at. Okay.
Yes.
I have one question. On the 2% spend, on comply or explain, if we explain that we have not spent, and there is a clause which says about carry forward from year to year, is there a block of 3 years, if I'm right,
Yeah.
reading the Gazette?
It talks of block
Block
of
of
period
3
of 3
years.
years. So what is the
What
block period
happens
of 3
after
years?
that?
Where is the block tell me?
Yeah, it is 2% in a block period of 3 years.
Just read to me, where is it?
No, it says
In the
2%
official
CSR
gazette.
spending would be computed as 2% of the average net profits made by the company during every block of 3 years.
Every
That's
block
all.
of 3 years.
Because the average of the last 3
Yeah,
years.
that's all it
No,
is.
The
but
last
then
3
carry
years.
forward,
Sorry?
carry forward also, I think there's provision.
Carry
for
what
block
forward?
of 3.
Carry what?
Carry forward
Unspent.
of
Corpus.
unspent also comes in.
Corpus.
Read to me, where is it?
I haven't got the
Yes, in
official
the
gazette.
reporting it says if there is any
In
carry
the
forward.
rules, it does not say.
So it can be carry forward perpetually.
Yes, absolutely. In the rules for the public sector, we had made it very clear that if there was a carry forward, you would need to spend it in this year. But in the rules for the corporate sector, our rules committee said, Dr. Chatterjee, if you are so harsh, everybody will back away. So if there's a shortfall, there's a shortfall. Sorry guys, couldn't do it. So at least for now, you are not under compulsion to spend the unspent balance. You can only indicate it in the report, that's it. But you don't under no compulsion to spend it, as the rules now stand.
Doctor, on the 2% spend that we're talking about, again the rules talk about the way the method in which the profit shall be calculated. It says the net profit of the company.
The net profit is now defined in the rules.
Yeah, it is
as
defined in the
before
rule,
tax now,
but
PBT.
before tax.
PBT.
So it is just plain PBT.
Plain, simple PBT, nothing more.
And it also says that will not include profits arising from branches outside India.
Yeah.
So is there anything?
That's what the rule says.
So it's plain profit before tax.
That's a PBT. We made it very simple. For the public sector, it was PAT, which was even simpler.
Yeah.
But now it's been made PBT.
But the question that was being asked by the finance folks is, when you say profit after tax before, the word, so forget the words used there. It is net profit before tax. The words used there are net profits before tax.
That's why we made it PBT now. It became quite simple.
No, I think we're still using the words net, and that's the confusion.
Net and that. And so the question
net
was...
Net profit is now defined here in the rules as PBT.
Before tax. That's what
before tax.
I was asked, is service tax calculated within, I mean, you apparently have to pay a service tax on this amount. And so is that part of the 2%, or is this over and above that we've got to have an outlay? Because you have a service tax component.
To ask the tax expert to tell us.
Yeah, so that's
It is defined over there in the rules itself when it comes to service tax.
Maybe then
The service tax will be chargeable if you're not giving the money to an NGO.
Yes. So if you're not, so then is that
part of the 2%?
Yeah, is that part of the 2%, or then over and above that we've got to pay
The service tax is paid by the implementation agency. You don't pay.
No, but they all charge you.
No, but they charge
you. So that becomes, you don't pay the service tax to the government. You pay it to the implementation agency. So that
no, but is that amount
considered
within our 2%?
Because right now,
our presumption is that it is.
It is.
So we shied away from
specifying.
Actually making a specific part.
But I think there's a point. Yeah. Particularly technology companies, as he said, you get a service tax credit. So can you sort of offset?
Because the rules
will not act as a goalkeeper here. You take that credit and we will accept it.
Because in the rules you can only give it to a non-profit right now, and they generally
but if the rules change
to support social enterprises, then I think.
Doctor, you did give a very crisp answer by saying no, that is the provision. Insofar as private limited companies are concerned, who says there seems to be some conflict within the provisions of the same legislation and the same rules under the same legislation. On one hand, the provisions of the Companies Act of 2013 say a private company should have at least 2 directors, which means it allows the company to have 2 directors only. Whereas the CSR rules specify that there shall be at least minimum 3 directors in case they are covered under CSR provisions. Is there a thought with the government or the ISEA to have a reconsideration on this? One, on the number of directors, because one rule contradicts the other within the same legislation. Second is, insofar as the definition of independent directors, it very clearly excludes private limited companies, whereas if you look to the provisions of the CSR rules, it says even if it is a private limited company, the company shall have one independent director. So is there
I suggest that although I took that view, and in many fora like this we have consistently taken that view, but why don't you now raise it?
We'll raise it.
We will.
There is also, I think you're absolutely right, while there is a discrepancy between the private company and the interpretation, even for a listed company, the definition which SEBI has in terms of the percentage of independent directors, vis-a-vis the new Companies Act, there is a variation.
Because 50% over there in SEBI regulation 49.
So some of those
we have to
actually
accept
sort of
that the act supersedes the regulation of SEBI. I gotta go now, guys.
Just one last.
Rest of the questions on the way to the lift.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
No, great. I hope I was patient enough with you guys.
Well, I'd still like my salary to be counted towards volume.
Good luck to you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If everyone still has some time, maybe we can Maybe we can have a couple words with,
Are you going back to Delhi today?
No, tomorrow.
No, so can we speak Monday? When
Oh, yes,
Pat
absolutely.
has the number? Perfect. Thanks, nice meeting you.
so maybe before we, well, it looks like a
Before
lot
we
of people,
disperse, I'll just.
a lot of people have dispersed,
I'll
but,
disperse. Yeah.
sorry.
No, not a problem.
No, happy to stay. I mean, we've
Yeah.
come all the way to sort
I
of get
know.
a
A long way
concerted-
you've come.
Huh?
You've come a long way.
Well, now.
Dairy circle's not too far.
And would NASCOM be sharing the details of participants here with all the members?
Sure, we
Absolutely, we
can.
can do
But
that.
what I'm gonna more encourage you to do is to please share your feedback. We've distributed forms.
I have done it.
Okay, so then, okay, great. Yeah, ANZ, sorry, you are on my list.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Accenture is not.
But then the contact.
No, but if there's any further inputs that you want to have after this meeting, it would be great to get those listed.
I'm just going to, I've sent it to
Well-
you, but I'm still going to try and
Modify it.
Yeah, no, based on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I want to really push forward.
And would NASCOM is sharing the draft of the proposal which will be go to the ISA and the government with its members before actually forwarding it to them?
Well, the time is pretty short now. The due date is Tuesday, so we were gonna try to give some consolidation of that tomorrow, and then, or by Monday, and then submit it by Tuesday. But I think.